Welcome back to another Wisco Fanatics Wednesday. We got a whole bunch of Brewers discussion going today and a little bit of Bucks to add at the end as well. So we're going to get into it. We got 5 games to talk about. We have the entire series against the Chicago Cubs and the first two split against the Colorado Rockies. So we're going to get into those as well. And then we're going to talk about the Bucks draft and the beginning of free agency. So let's get into it.
Welcome to another live episode of the Wisco Fanatics Show, where we discuss the Packers, Bucks, Brewers, Badgers football, and basketball from an optimistic perspective. Wisco Fanatics is brought to you by Cardboard Legacy, Wisconsin's most complete sports card shop. Buy, sell, grade, and consign all at their location in Oshkosh.
Okay, so we have 5 games to talk about, but before we get into our power pair for the last week of games, we have a handful of Brewers updates to discuss. We're going to start with Joey Ortiz being placed on the 10-day injured list, retroactive to yesterday. That'll probably carry him into the All-Star break. Same with Enoli Paredes, who was placed on the 15-day injured list. So those two will probably both be back after the All-Star break. Vinny Capra and Jansen Junk have been called up in their place. Then the other thing that we have to talk about this morning is the Brewers acquired Aaron Savali from the Tampa Bay Rays in exchange for Gregory Barrios. He was an infielder for the Timber Rattlers. And just wanted to talk really quick about Savali. People are going to see just first, and the only thing they're going to see is a 5.07 ERA and a 2-6 record. First things first, Jake and I are firm believers that record should not be a tracked stat for pitchers because there is so much that depends in a Major League Baseball game that a pitcher cannot control that decides the outcome. The other thing that I want to bring up with Savali is that his FIP, that's fielding independent pitching, which takes the defense out of it, is 4.69, so it's lower than his ERA, which suggests that with better defense, his ERA would be lower. Obviously, that's something the Brewers are known for, so there's that. Now, with this deal also, Savali is under control for the rest of 2024, obviously, and he's under team control for 2025. So if the Brewers are able to figure something out with him, which one of the things that I've seen floating around a lot, something that Dominic Cotroneo pointed out right away, is the Brewers like guys that have high spin rates, which Savali does. Now, at 29 years old, is there a lot to be done with Savali yet? We'll find out. But if you look at some of his earlier seasons, his first year with the Indians, at that time, I believe they were still the Indians, the Guardians now, he had a 2.34 ERA in 10 starts. His third year in Cleveland, he had a 3.84 ERA in 23 starts, 3.46 ERA in 2023 in 23 starts. So there's definitely some potential there, although admittedly a little bit inconsistent. Connor said he loves this trade for the Brewers. Absolutely. I mean, they traded a AAA infielder for him last year, and we got him this year for a single A infielder. So there's definitely a net gain on that for the Brewers and a net loss on it for the Rays, and the Brewers get a back of the rotation helper. Mm-hmm. So I don't know if there's anything you want to throw in there on Aaron Savali for the trade the Brewers made this morning.
When I was going through his starts, it was just he was eating some innings, which is obviously something that we've struggled with at times during this season. So it correlates to something that we're going to talk about later about, managing the bullpen, which, we are going to be getting through the dog days of summer. So we're going to have to start setting up our playoff bullpen, right? So we're going to have to start setting our final roster, getting guys in their, permanent roles and figure that stuff out if we want to make a run at it this year. So having a guy that could eat 5 innings at a time and only give up 3 runs is a good thing for us, right? Especially with this team can hit. Maybe give him some lower pressure innings to pitch in as well. I look at it as a guy, as a pickup, like a guy like a Colin Ray, a guy that nobody really knew about. He comes over, he gets thrown into the Brewers pitching lab, and then there's like, here's an MLB starting pitcher.
Yeah, right.
It just works out. The Brewers do that to everybody. So until they're not able to make somebody potentially good for us, Michael's thinking the same thing. That we all are a great addition, low cost. But until they're not able to take somebody and fix him, I'll always believe in them. I look at the Brewers pitching lab like this. Like, you ever seen like a group of girls at the bar and they see a toxic guy and they're just like, I could fix him. That's the Brewers pitching lab. I could fix him. And they fix everybody.
Bro, when you started with, do you ever see a group of women at the bar? I was like, where the hell is this going? And it came around to I can fix him. All right.
Hey. My brain, but it always comes. It always makes sense. It always makes sense.
All right. The other thing Connor said, he's just got to trust the pitching lab. We've also seen the difference from start 1 and 2 for Dallas. Let the lab do its thing. We are very, very, very firm believers in the Brewers pitching lab. Jared Koenig is another perfect example in there as well. So seeing Jared Koenig, who's 30 years old and had a career, I think it was close to 5 ERA, and now he's got like a 197 ERA with the Brewers, and he's pitching like a stud.
That's ridiculous.
Yeah, Brandon, this is absolutely true. Brandon said the poor guy's first start is against the Dodgers. Brewers, quote unquote, fans are going to go crazy if he gets hard, but maybe he will shut him down. And, the pitching lab's got a couple days to work with him, so we'll see what happens. But, yes, Brandon, that's absolutely something the Brewers fans should stop doing, something that we've advocated very strongly against is recency bias. So,
yep.
Let's get a little bit of a sample size, even with Dallas Keuchel, who's got 2 starts now with the Brewers. We'll talk about him when we get into
yesterday.
Yeah, it was yesterday.
Dude,
when we're on like late games, it messes with my timing.
Yeah.
Okay. So let's get into our power pair, underrated performers. Give me your power pair and underrated performer.
So for power pair, last week I had him as my UP, my underrated performer, but this week I have him as my power pair hitter, and it is none other than hopefully the all-star starter, Christian Yelich. This week he went 11 of 26, scored 5 runs, had a double, a triple, a home run that produced 2 RBIs, a walk, only 3 strikeouts, and 4 stolen bases. So if you're looking at the slashes, that's a 423 average, a 444 on base percentage, a 654 slug, and a 1098 OPS. So because I had him in my UP, I decided to combine the last 2 weeks for Yelly. That's a 346 average, a 420 on base, a 481 slug, and an 897 OPS over the last 2 weeks. I mean, the guy is just going insane. He's hitting the ball everywhere, hitting with power, giving you defense, and he might be an all-star starter, which after last year when we were advocating for him just to make the team, and a year later, talk about a bounce back, man. I mean, that's crazy. Then my power pair pitcher, I went with my boy, Freddie Peralta. 7 innings, 2 hits, 1 earned run, 1 home run, which he gave up on the second pitch of the game. We had a watch party for that, so Connor heard us.
That was an awesome game to have a watch party for.
It was. 2 walks and 8 Ks. He had a 0.87 opponent batting average against him, 1 start, 1 quality start, and a win. He did the classic Freddie thing where he gives up a home run early and then he absolutely just shuts you down and turns into a Cy Young pitcher. My underrated performer, I didn't tell you this, but the before mentioned Colin Ray. I went with Colin Ray this week.
Okay.
I feel like I want to throw him in the underrated performer every week until Brewers fans start giving him the respect that he deserves. 5 1/3 innings pitched, only 3 hits, 2 earned runs. He gave up a home run, had 2 walks, and 8 strikeouts, and a win versus the Cubs. So absolutely beautiful start from Colin Ray and Freddie Peralta this week. So good stuff.
All right, so firstly, I want to throw out Jackson Chourio. He had a 412 average this week in 5 games, 444 on base percentage, and a 647 slug. He had 209 weighted runs created plus. That's 100 is average. Some of the last 5 games, Jackson Chourio has been over double what an average baseball player would give. He's been an absolute monster in the last week. He's driven in 6, scored 5 himself. So Jackson Chourio doing a really great job over the last week of games. We said it last week. We firmly believe he's turned a corner in June, so it's continuing so far in the first few days of July. For pitcher, I went with Trevor McGill. He pitched 3 innings over the last week, only gave up 2 hits, no walks, no runs, 2 strikeouts, 2 saves, and hasn't given up an earned run since June 15th. And he's starting to get a little bit, not a lot, but a little bit of all-star buzz even. So not a lot, but a little bit. It's probably a little too late for him to get in, but maybe as a potential injury substitution, Trevor McGill could maybe sneak into that all-star game. For underrated performer, I had to go with Sal Frelick. Definitely talked about him a good amount during the watch party on Sunday. Mm-hmm. But with Sal Frelick, his opposite field approach is really what's making an impression on me. He's got a 308 average over the last week, 400 on base percentage, scored 2 runs, drove 2 runs in as well, and he has hits in 8 of his last 10 games. Over those 10 games, he has 12 hits and 31 at-bats. That's a 387 batting average in that time. Also drew 2 walks and stole 3 bases while only striking out 3 times. So Sal Frelick putting the ball in play, getting a lot of hits, hitting through catcher's interference even, which we'll talk about from Monday's game. But really liking what I'm seeing from Sal Frelick in the month of June and now carrying into July. Brandon McGill was my power pair this week. He's underrated as far as the league as a whole is concerned, but not by us. I would have to go back to figure out exactly what show it was, but we talked about him earlier in the season, and I discussed him having those 2 pitches, the fastball and the knuckle curve, being able to use them effectively, switch them up, and have 2 pitches that are both elite could make him into a very good closer. And that's something that we're seeing come to fruition. And we're still going to get Devin Williams and the best changeup in baseball back after the All-Star break, likely.
Yeah.
All right. So what did you call it on Sunday? The comedy show?
Yeah, I said, what the heck did I say? God, I said, welcome to your next comedy act or whatever, the Chicago Cubs. And it was just like, it just worked so perfectly. But that's exactly what it was. And before I get to the breakdown, I just want to talk about how beautiful of a moment this is for Wisconsin sports fans. How beautiful is this? Karma, I tell you, karma is real, and she does not miss. She does not miss. Craig Counsell is getting all of the karma, and he is getting to see it firsthand, and I'm loving every single moment of it. I know Brewers fans are as well. So we get into this one, right? And Colin Ray, by the way, not known as a swing and miss guy, had 15 swings and misses in this game against a Cubs team that was one of the better offenses in the National League last year, and they look horrendous. Now, Tyler and I talk about this quite a bit. I know we talked about it on Sunday. They do have a very high walk rate. They get on base.
Mm-hmm. So they take a lot of pitches. They're one of the teams like the Brewers that don't swing a lot.
Yeah, they have a very good on-base percentage, if you don't consider their batting averages, because their batting averages are terrible. But if you take in just their walk rate, I mean, they're getting on base plenty. So for Colin Ray to have this many swings and misses against that Cubs offense is impressive. 5 1/3, like I said, 3 hits, 2 earned, and 8 strikeouts for Colin Ray. That's a game.
Career high 8 strikeouts.
That's a game. Peguero, Koenig, and McGill. Only 2 hits between them, 0 earned runs, and 5 strikeouts from the bullpen. So absolutely tremendous. I mean, is that real? I mean, I think you need a couple more of the signs, to show how great.
Do you want to just open the can? Should we open the can right now?
I was going to wait till after the 3rd game, but let's open the can.
Okay. So AFAM Rolfs on YouTube says Pat Murphy greater than Craig Counsell. I wanted to ask you this question. I did not tell you that I was going to ask you this question. I was going to tell you that I was going to ask you a question. But do you think that there is a bigger change to this team, to what they're becoming in 2023 compared to what they are now in 2024 than what Pat Murphy has done for this team in terms of philosophy and strategy?
I think the biggest change, and this might sound crazy because I'm not in the locker room, I think the biggest change is Pat allows the players to be themselves. And I think that's very apparent by just listening to the players talk after the games. And they always say the same stuff, how much they love Pat Murphy and how he lets them be, lets them be themselves. And that's just the connection that I make is I think that Craig runs a tight ship. Yeah, I think he runs a tight ship. He's uptight. He's like, we got to do this. We got to do this. And like, no disrespect to Craig, right? If I could be real, I think he's a good manager. He's a very good baseball manager. He's earned his money by turning Milwaukee into a perennial winner over the last 6 seasons before this year, right? Yep. But
that most people from Whitefish Bay are.
Yeah. But I will say, I think that Pat Murphy, he's kind of got the old school toughness, but he also has like the wherewithal to just be understanding when he has to be. And I think that he just lets players be themselves. As long as they're doing the right things, they'll find playing time, right?
So if I'm going to answer the same question, to me, it's two things that are the biggest from last year to this year. One being Pat Murphy's aggressive style, which there's complaining about it, but there's no defending against what the results have been so far through
100%.
about 90 games.
Mm-hmm.
The other one, the only other thing that I would say is potentially a bigger catalyst for how good this Brewers team has been compared to last year is the performance of the young players.
Yeah,
And
that's a good one.
The second year leap from Terang, Sal Frelick improving since June, Churio improving since June, Joey Ortiz being damn near an all-star. I mean, you look at the performance of those young guys, that's the other thing that I think would be the only other thing that would be the biggest contenders for what's made the changes. Now, Brandon asked the question, I wonder what and how Ricky Weeks brings in their philosophy.
That's a great point.
I feel like he's part of like the letting players being themselves because he isn't super far removed from being a player.
Yeah.
So I feel like he gives kind of the ing to the yang of Pat Murphy. So they have a little bit of that combine and contrast. And I think it works really well. If I'm said, also Pat just looks scarier and better.
He kind of looks like a perfect portrait of like a classic baseball manager.
He does.
I don't mean that in like any disrespect. I hope Pat Murphy.
No, Dusty Baker, exact same thing. He looks like the dude that stands on the top step and it's just like overseeing everything.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, totally.
See, on top of, how we feel about Murphy letting players be players, you can also tell that like he really cares about his guys, man.
Mm-hmm.
That's why they care about him so much. So I feel like it's reciprocated. And man, he's just the feel around this team, like the energy. Like you're not even in the locker room. We're not even in the locker room, but you can just tell the energy around this team is just much more positive.
Mm-hmm.
That's at least how I feel.
And I think there is something to that Pat Murphy has guys feeling looser, feeling, I don't think there's any pressure felt. I'm sure that there's still going to be some self-imposed pressure, but I don't think they're going to feel it from Murphy as much, unless it's coming from a place of, I know you're capable of succeeding, and I'm not telling you that you're not doing something right because I'm trying to belittle you or to fire you up, which is something we'll talk about in one of these games. But it's more from a place of, I know that you're capable of this. You can do better. That's why I'm in your face saying you need to do better because I believe that you can do better. Council looks like a guy who just got yelled at by his wife for leaving the toilet seat up. There's something among Cubs fans that I'm seeing a lot of, that people don't like Council's tame demeanor, that he doesn't like lose his mind often.
Connor, that's a good point, but we're gonna get there. Okay, we're gonna get there.
Yeah, Connor saw a lot of people complaining about Ricky managed Monday after Murph got ejected. We'll talk about. I have some thoughts on that as well. So, Jake, wrap up your thoughts from Game 1 of the Cubs series, and I'll give mine, and we'll keep talking Brewers Cubs, and then we'll get to the Rockies games.
Yeah, so another day, another grand slam, right? I mean, Jackson Churio's first career grand slam. He had 4 RBIs in the day, gets him up to 32 on the year, 9 home runs now on the year for the Rook. And how they got on base. And honestly, this is ridiculous, dude. The amount of times that the Brewers get on base from crazy shit is just insane to me.
Yep.
It is. It's insane. And we're going to talk about last night's game when we get there because the 9th inning was bonkers.
Mm-hmm.
But Hoskins got an infield single. Frelick got on base from a catcher's interference, and Yelich got on base from a fielder's choice after Contreras walked, and he got out at second.
Yep.
And then we have a 0-2 count.
Yep.
He hits a foul ball. He takes a fastball high, and then he smashes a sweeper. 98.4 miles per hour. Would have been a home run in 21 of 30 ballparks. I saw a lot of people being like, it scraped the wall. 21 of 30 ballparks, you people. That's over 2/3.
70%.
Yeah. So I'll take that any day of the week. I mean, after the game, seeing the Cubs fans crying, oh man, it's chef's kiss, you know.
I showed you guys the meme. We did the watch party on Sunday. I showed you the meme, and it's like somebody going through their downfall, and then it's another stick figure with the eye emoji on it, and me standing there watching because I prayed for it. Seeing Cubs fans implode after they thought that they were winning the division because they took our manager is hilarious. And I said the needle would melt if Pat Murphy got Botox in his forehead. Oh man.
Maybe
Seeing
after that
Pat
call
Murphy,
on Monday.
when that dude gets fired up, he's ready to go.
Well, I would not mess with him.
Okay. So I thought it was funny that Brian Anderson kind of cursed the Cubs after the first batter about making outs on the bases. They had two really close plays at the first base in the top of the first and the top of the second. And then in the top of the sixth, I don't know if Bellinger just thought that there was two outs, and that's why he was running and ran 4 steps past second base on a deep fly ball to center field, got doubled up. So just making more outs on the bases. Thanks.
Attention
Appreciate
to detail. Not high in Chicago.
Yeah. The Brewers, to their credit, they put a lot of good swings on the ball early in this game as well. Just some of them had too much air under them, which is just something that happens. You mentioned Colin Ray turning up the Ks, struck out the side in the third and the fifth on the way to those career-high 8 strikeouts. Also got 2 inning-ending double plays, so just honestly just a really great outing by Colin Ray.
Yeah.
And I agree with you that we could put him as the underrated performer every single week until people start putting respect on him.
Yeah.
This gave the Brewers their major league leading 24th comeback win. They're up to 26 now, so they're definitely still leading in that category as well. Now, you mentioned already the kind of Abram said Yelich runs like his knees don't bend. It's just so smooth that you can't even tell. Christian Yelich isn't the fastest guy in baseball anymore. He's still fast, and he's so smooth. He cuts bases. I think he's the best in baseball at.
And then they made the bases bigger.
Right, it made it easier. His path from base to base, I think, is the best. He's like that. Churrio's on a 9-game hitting streak. He's been fantastic since the calendar turned to June. Now, what's funny about this is that you mentioned Rhys Hoskins had an infield single. The pitcher tried like a behind-the-back maneuver to try to stop that ball, and that's what allowed Hoskins to reach.
Which
that ball gets through, that's a chance for an out. It could have just been a fielder's choice or a ground out for Rhys Hoskins, but it ended up as an infield single because the pitcher knocked it down with his glove.
I got to know what the comment section thinks here. Chat, we got to know. Who is the slowest base runner on the Brewers? We were having that talk last night, and I was like, it'd be a good race. And you were like, it would not be a good race.
It'd be a bad race.
We said Hoskins and El Gary. So I want to know what you guys think. Who's slower? And no using the internet to tell you either.
Okay. So Brandon said Sanchez. Haha. So with Jackson Chourio, you already mentioned the way that he went through his at-bats. We talk not often, but once in a while about infectious smiles. Oh, Connor said Reese, so we're 1-1. We talk about infectious smiles. Like Andre Monasterio started this conversation. Yes, AFM said Gary. All right, 2 for me. Talk about infectious smiles. Andre Monasterio, when he came up to the bigs, he had one. Talked about Tobias Myers after his 8-inning outing that he had against the Tigers, the giant smile that he had on his face. Jackson Chourio has one of those infectious smiles too. He comes to the dugout after his grand slam, and you just see the joy, and it's like, that's what I want from this team.
Mm-hmm.
Now hold on to that. Put that in put a pin in that. Put it behind your ear. We're going to come back to it. Because there's something that we've talked about before when we talked about certain people, and I want to have that conversation again when we talk about somebody from the Cubs later on in this series. Now, Jackson Chourio, 6th youngest player ever to hit a grand slam.
Oh, yeah.
Elvis Peguero, I think, did a really nice job. Ending the 6th inning, was good in the 7th, despite loading the bases. The bunt single, I think, was more because of the defensive positioning, more so than something that Elvis Peguero did to give up a hit. And then the infield single, baseball is what it is. Not necessarily anything that Elvis Bogart did wrong. Now, Jared Koenig is a boss. I was really bummed to see him go on the injured list after this game because Jared Koenig, he continues to earn leverage and he continues to deliver in leverage situations.
Mm-hmm.
Other than that, Trevor McGill had an 11-pitch, 1-2-3 ninth inning, and we got a W.
Damn.
Brandon said he cheated. It is Sanchez, then Reese, then Tyler Black.
I got to know what the foot speed is now.
I feel like we haven't had a chance to see Tyler Black actually get out and run.
Yeah, well,
I think he's only had a few hits in the bigs so far, so we haven't gotten to see him put a ball in the gap and actually turn on the jets to register a high sprint speed.
Yeah.
So we'll get there with that. Okay, game 2, the only game that they lost against the Cubs. What stood out to you from that one?
So first of all, got to give Tobias Myers credit here.
Yep.
He did a great job. He did a really great job getting ahead of batters again. That's something that he's been very good at over the last month since he's come back from AAA. He had 19 of 27 first pitch strikes. So that's something that clearly is important to him. Now, there's more veteran pitchers that can work from behind in counts, but he's still a young guy. So that's a very important first step for him to continue to be able to be good at that. So credit to him for that. Also, giving us 6 innings is still a great thing. He went 6 innings, 7 hits, 3 earned runs, 2 walks, and 6 Ks.
That's literally a quality start.
Still a quality start. The 3 runs were all within the first 4 innings, and then he still ended up doing 2 more innings after that. So I really wanted to give him a lot of credit. I think Tobias Myers is a guy that's definitely turned a corner now too, that we have to start giving him credit for that. Hudson did Hudson things. I mean, do we have to say anything about him?
All-star. That's what we should be saying.
Yep. Piamps, rough. But Anoli Canoli, who sadly went on the injury report this week or today, sad. Oh, I got to read that. I see. Oh, wow. Gary is much slower than Reese. Holy crap.
Damn right he is.
Okay. I thought it'd be a lot closer.
Yeah.
I thought it'd be 24.6 for Gary and then 24.9 for Reese. I thought it'd be a lot closer.
Guy in the blue shirt knows ball.
oh, it's hurtful. What was I saying? I lost my train of thought. Oh, I was going to talk about the scoring here. So Turang had a bunt single to the pitcher, and the bunt, I think, is something that Turang needs to use a little bit more, like Perkins does. Because I feel like people are starting to shade him up the middle and shade him the pole, although he does hit opposite field plenty. I think that he should use the bunt a little bit more as an element of surprise. But Frelick scores on it. Monasterio gets the third, scores 2-1. Contreras after that then singles the center. Monasterio scores, makes the game 2-2. The Cubs get a run. Frelick in the bottom of the 4th. Frelick grounded out into a fielder's choice to the shortstop. Not going to name him because I don't like him. Churio ends up scoring on that. Game's 3-3. And then Piamps, it is what it is. I don't want to hurt anybody because we already saw it. Brewers ended up losing this game, but they were still competitive.
Ian Happ is going to get us at some point. So it's just going to happen.
I hate saying his name, and I hate giving him credit, although I did on Sunday because he's a good player, man.
He's a good baseball player. Yeah, there's no denying that.
A gold glover, power.
We had this conversation on Sunday as well. We don't necessarily hate the Cubs players. I hate their organization, and it's so much more because of their obnoxious fan base than anything that the team actually does.
Oh, weird. It's like the Bears. Oh, wait, they're in the same city.
Yeah, shocker. Okay, so just want to throw this out there. We are going to talk about the Bucks today, but the Bucks just signed Taurean Prince, so adding another. We'll get to it. Stick around for that. We're gonna talk about the Bucks after.
Sure, that's a good move.
I agree.
God damn, that's a good move.
All right,
nice job, John Horst.
We will get to it. We're gonna get to it.
Nice.
Today, looking at Brewers Cubs game 2, Tobias Myers, he got off to a bad start with the first 2 batters. Gave up a single and a homer. However, after that, he recovered very well. After the first 2 batters, he faced 25 more. He retired 18. He gave up 5 hits, 2 walks, 6 strikeouts, and only 1 earned run. So overall, the 6 innings pitched, 3 earned runs. That is still a quality start. Now, again, it's that top of the 5th inning mark around 70 pitches. This is the 3rd straight start that he's gotten into some hot water around that 70 to 75 pitch mark. Escaped from those situations, and in 2 of the 3 of those last 3 outings, he was able to earn himself an extra inning of work, which he did again in this game and got a 1-2-3-6. So the only time that he was pulled after escaping the hot water was in San Diego when there was a lefty coming up named Jake Cronenworth who was raking against the Brewers that whole 4-game series.
Yeah, he was on fire.
So I understand pulling him for a left-handed pitcher in that series. Yep. Other than that, Tobias Myers has earned himself an extra inning of work after getting out of some hot water. So every time Tobias Myers pitches, I'm going to be really watching closely to when he's starting to hit 65, 69, 70, 75 pitches. Brandon said the fastest players in the Brewers, Churio 29.6, Terang 29.4, Perkins 29.4. Brandon, can you look up Sal Frelick? I feel like he's up there too.
He's got to be like 28.
He's got to be really close.
Yeah.
He's probably like 29.3. Okay. The bottom of the 5th was probably 29.1. Okay. So he's right on there. The bottom of the 5th probably was the Brewers' best chance to win. Just having Myers escaping a big jam in the top of the 5th with top of the order coming up. They went 1-2-3. It's tough, but it happens. Happ was also due against Yoel Payamps. I want to throw that out there as well. He was previously 0 for 6 against Payamps. So now he's 1 for 7 with a home run.
Yeah.
And one thing that I wanted to discuss, something that's going to be kind of a theme with the Brewers this week, is the amount of people that I'm seeing saying that they're concerned for the second half of the season about overexerting the bullpen. And then a still large group of Brewers fans being like, how can you pull Hudson? What are you doing? Like, you can't have both. You can't complain about overusing people and being worried that they're going to be overworked, and then also complain when they're not being overworked.
People live to complain, man.
You just can't do it. This was the game afterwards when Pat Murphy was asked about the decision to not let Hudson go a second inning, that he said he was going to be more judicious with Brian Hudson's innings. So I think that over the course of the second half of the season, we're going to see less 2-inning appearances from Brian Hudson once every 3 or 4 days. And I'm hoping we get to see more 1 inning at a time every other or sometimes back-to-back days.
Yeah.
Used more like a traditional reliever, more so than the way that they were using Josh Hader when they were using him for 3-inning saves.
Yeah, that was crazy.
So that's what I'm looking for from Brian Hudson, something that I'm going to keep in mind. Now, I will say the Brewers tried the double steal, and it's about time that somebody caught on to it.
Yeah,
the Brewers, they've gotten away with it so many times, and they should have been gotten caught after the first time they got away with it. Trying the double steal when the guy's on first and third, that they have the guy take off for second, and as soon as the ball is let go, the guy goes from third to home. It's about time somebody caught on to it. But it is what it is. They'll get away with it again. It's going to happen again. The amount of pressure that they put on other teams, the amount of aggression that they play with on the base paths, it's going to happen again. Now, this is the game that I want to have the other discussion. We've talked about not liking Cubs and their fan base. I lost some respect for Justin Steele in this game. Sal Frelick escaped a rundown in the 3rd inning, helped the Brewers score one of their runs, and Justin Steele goes into the dugout and he's yelling at everybody, screaming at his team, and getting on his infielders for allowing Sal Frelick to escape that rundown. And I tweeted about it, and I'm like, people see this, and the Brewers fans want to bring in Trevor Bauer, who does stuff like this regularly. Like there's videos of him walking into the dugout screaming at people as recently as his time in Japan, which was just 2023, and people want to bring that to the Brewers. We just talked in game 1 of this series about Jackson Churio having an infectious smile, and same thing with Andrew Monasterio and Tobias Myers, and having that chemistry of good people that are happy to be here, and people are like, yeah, well, hopefully it lights a fire under them. And I'm like, there are so much better ways than walking into a dugout and screaming at your teammates. Because there are if I'm in that dugout, I now feel more tense than if you had come in and been like, guys, we got to figure this out. We're all together in this, versus making it seem like you are above your teammates because they fucked up.
Yeah.
So I don't care if it's a boomer thing that they're like, well, I hope it fired them up. It's got to be something, you got to tell people when they're playing bad. There's so many better ways that you can do that without making your teammates feel like shit. They're all Major League Baseball players. They know they messed up. They don't need you walking into the dugout screaming at them to wake the fuck up. They know they messed up.
Is anybody would he feel good after he gives up a 3-run homer for the other team to take the lead and then they lose like their 5th game in a row or whatever? Would he feel good if somebody came and screamed at him?
What if I told you in the same inning that he's screaming at his teammates for not executing a rundown correctly, that he did not field a bunt that was bunted in front of him? So, no, I don't think that that's a good way to go about lighting a fire under your teammates.
Weird.
But, let's bring a guy like that into Milwaukee, where we've talked about it time and time again that the biggest advantages are people, which Trevor McGill talked about in a pregame interview a little bit yesterday, that he loves the people, he loves the fans, he loves the culture. No, let's throw that away for the starting pitcher who's pitching in the Mexican League that nobody else has signed either.
Yeah.
So glad we've added 2 starting pitchers since that discussion so that people can settle down.
Right.
Probably won't. Savali will give up 3 runs to the Dodgers on Saturday, and people will be like, oh my God, why didn't we get Trevor Bauer instead? Brennan said it goes both ways. I think Tom Brady was that kind of player.
But I also think that Tom Brady was more personal with his teammates. And Tom Brady's also the most winning quarterback in NFL history. I think he gets a little bit longer leash than Justin Steele.
In anything history.
People respect Tom Brady when he walks in the room.
Yeah,
Steele's still making his name.
Yeah, and
that's my excuse. If you don't like it, it's fine.
Yeah, I don't think Trevor Bauer has deserved Tom Brady levels of.
Rodgers was the same way with his teammates, right? I mean, there's a reason that Rodgers doesn't get mic'd up anymore because he's cussing. Josh, snap the ball.
Yeah,
we all heard it. That's the way that he talked to people. He would always yell at wide receivers when they ran the wrong routes. Hey, get your head out of your ass! Like, yeah, we've seen it. Those kind of guys though that are perennial all pros, they win MVPs. Okay, Michael, we're not going to get on this discussion.
Yeah, that's a whole other thing.
We're going to stay on the Brewers right now. I would love to have that discussion with you someday.
We talk about it as far as, like, honestly, just mental health things go. There's something to be said about the way that you go about things like this. Mm-hmm. Because let's say Jake and I are having a conversation about how we're going to do something for the show, and I say, Jake, like, there's something that you're doing that, like, if you can get rid of it, like if saying say Jake said every other word, and I was like, bro, you got to cut out the ums. And then Jake's coming into the show and he's like, don't say don't say don't say don't say and Jake's gonna say a bunch of ums because he's thinking about doing that.
Mm-hmm.
So you have to set the intention of what you want to focus on. So there's a big Brandon said, Jake, wake up.
Hey, sorry, Brandon.
Do you feel there's a fire under you now?
No. I feel a little.
It's setting the intention. So if we're looking at it from a growth mindset perspective, instead of a you guys are fucking up and you're ruining everything that I'm doing on the mound, versus okay guys, we are all capable of better, let's do better. There's a much different tone to be set there.
Mm-hmm.
And say what you will about it, that it's all sunshines and rainbows, like, heard it 1,000 times. But you listen to successful people, that's how they talk. They talk about focusing on a growth mindset, about growing as opposed to shrinking.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you're using the wide receiver example and somebody's yelling that, you're running the wrong routes, and a guy's thinking, don't run the wrong route, don't run the wrong route, don't run the wrong route, and the next thing he does is run a wrong route, that's because that's what he's thinking about.
Mm-hmm.
So before we get into game 3, we can answer Michael's question, who said, what do we do with Devin Williams? We put him right back where he belongs in the 9th inning and use Trevor McGill in the 8th.
I think he was being Brian's favorite word, facetious. While you were trying to give a serious conversation, I think he was saying what do we do with Devin Williams?
What do we do with Devin Williams? Yeah, you put him back in the 9th inning and you let Trevor McGill set him up perfectly once Williams is healthy. So you hold on to Devin Williams until after the All-Star break. Don't rush him back a week early. What difference does that make where the Brewers are already playing so well and Trevor McGill is holding it down just fine? You install Devin Williams in the 9th inning after the All-Star break, and you let Trevor McGill be one of the best setup men in baseball.
I'm going to play devil's advocate for a second. This is interesting to me. I want to know how you guys feel. So Devin Williams has been a setup man before, and I think that he deserves to be in the 9th because he has the best changeup in baseball. Absolutely no argument. With McGill playing so good in the 9th as the closer, would you consider Devin Williams as a setup guy?
So let me say this, and this is something I would think that Pat Murphy, Chris Hook, Jim Henderson will look at, is if you are looking at your team and you're looking at who you're about to go play against, the only way I would consider switching it is if you have guys coming up in the 8th inning that, say, hit curveballs well and struggle versus changeups.
Yeah.
So if you know that a guy has like a 111 batting average against changeups and bats 275 against curveballs, then maybe you switch them.
Okay.
Or the other thing that I would do is, let's say Devin Williams pitches 2 days in a row, then the next day you use Trevor McGill as the closer.
I can see that.
So overall, no, I still think you use McGill as the 8th inning guy and Devin Williams as the closer, but I could see some very, very specific matchup dependent appearances where they do flip-flop.
Okay, I'm with that. I just thought that was interesting as I was
thinking. No, it's a good conversation to have, and it's a really great problem to have for the Brewers, similarly with their outfield.
I think Williams is going to be able to he's going to do what the team wants, right? So, oh, God.
So, Brandon says, is Williams willing to do that, though? I mean, I don't see why not. It's going to be a thing where winning is going to be the most important thing. And my dad asked, is that a little over managing, something like Craig Counsell would do? And I think it's more matchups as opposed to over managing. Like, if we're talking, I mean, you can use different sports as an example. Like, if you're talking about a quarterback that doesn't throw the deep ball well, like you're going to play less deep coverage just because you know that that's something they don't do well. Yeah. Or basketball, you're talking about guys that don't have a high 3-point percentage. Those are going to be the guys that you leave open when you're rotating your defense around. So if you know what your strengths are and your opponent has strengths against your strengths, but they have a weakness to something else that is another pitcher's strength, like put your strength against their weakness and just shut that shit down and then still have a guy to come in after. So I think it's going to be very, very, very specific situations. Like I'm going to say like 90% of the time that Devin Williams is still going to be the 9th inning guy. And maybe 10% of the time that the opposite happens. Connor said, I think it also could be matchup wise with the setup man between Trevor and Hudson. And I 100% agree with that. What's going to be really exciting is that the Brewers, even though they haven't played a ton of close games, in close games, they could have back-to-back days where they have a lefty-righty setup of Hudson, McGill, or Koenig, Devin Williams, and you have 4 super, super trusted guys to pitch the last 3 innings of your games.
Actually, now that I'm thinking about it a lot after you say that, what if they just pair people up? This guy goes with this guy goes with this guy. Whatever way you want to do it, whatever way works better with the numbers, that might be a way you do it too. Then you could save the guy's arms. Yep. You have 2 closers, 2 setup guys.
Yep. Obviously, you still have to be somewhat liquid in being able to adjust game by game by game, but you can kind of plan that, a little bit at least, to kind of maybe structure your bullpen appearances a little bit, and that's something that maybe they can use. That type of scheduling idea. That's something maybe they can use to kind of manage these guys' innings a little bit. So for people people worried about overusing the bullpen or how much the Brewers are using their bullpen or the fact that Bryce Wilson is still starting games and that they want him back in the bullpen for some long relief appearances if he's needed for that, structuring the bullpen like this and having more guys that you trust in late innings is only going to benefit you.
I mean, Jacob Junis getting a little bit better too, which we're going to talk about in the
next. He's going to be back in the starting rotation.
And him eating innings, as a starter, that's going to be something that helps the bullpen as well. And Wilson going back, and he could still give 4 innings if we need him to in a blowout game. Okay, pitch 4 innings for us, save the bullpen for tomorrow. Okay, call it good.
Yep. All right. Game 3. We had the watch party for this game. If you are not subscribed to us on Patreon, Connor could tell you, Michael could tell you on the Patreon side of it. We have a pregame show 30 minutes before the game. These are all of my notes that I had for the pregame show. This whole page and this whole page is all just pregame notes. That's all stuff that the more that we get support for this, and we thank the people who have subscribed to us so far on Patreon, the more people that we get subscribed to that, the more that we can monetize the show, the closer that we get to being able to do this show for a full-time job, the more effort that we can put into it, the more time we can put into it, the better content we can create, and the more content we can create. And you just get to watch the game with us.
Also, it'd be really cool if we can get enough money to get like a place for us to do the show, so you don't have to listen to my dog. And
having an office and a studio would be like the coolest thing ever.
Yeah, I would literally feel like $1 million every day. So
yeah, that would be that's career, not job type stuff.
Yeah.
My dad said use 2 or 3 each night, so when clutch time comes, all 3 are used to the situations. And that's the thing. You have 4 guys that you can trust for 7, 8, 9 innings.
Yeah.
You can stack the lefties if the team's got a lot of lefties. It's such a great problem to have.
Yeah, the Brewers bullpen will be fine. They know what they're doing. Again, we were just talking about trusting the pitching lab. I think they got this. We could all sit this one out.
And we got a reliever of the year coming back after the All-Star break.
I think we'll be okay.
Yep, it's going to be better than okay.
And you know what? If they need a guy that's going to come in for a week, they'll just pick up some average Joe off the street, turn him into an MLB pitcher, and be like, "Enjoy your paycheck. See you later."
or they'll grab a guy who's just sitting on a AAA roster somewhere like Dallas Keuchel and say, "Hey, come give us some starts, and we'll win some games while you're pitching."
Yeah.
Okay. Let's go to Brewers Cubs game 3. So this was the game that we did the watch party for. Freddie Peralta gave up an early solo home run and then locked in. He retired 18 of the 19 final batters that he faced, including 14 straight and 4 straight 1-2-3 innings.
Man.
Did we not talk about this last Wednesday, saying that if the Brewers get the August /September version of Freddie Peralta for the rest of the year, and we have ace level Freddie that we know he's capable of, that this Brewers team just becomes all the more dangerous.
Yeah.
So the Brewers total allowed 5 base runners to the Cubs in this game. 2 hits, 3 walks. That's it. So the Brewers, this was their 25th comeback win. They are the second team in baseball history to hit 5 grand slams in a period of 8 games.
Yes, sir.
And the other thing that I really took away from this game after Freddie Peralta's 7 innings was that Jacob Junis pitched the 8th and the 9th. He gave up a 1-out walk in the 8th and had a 1-2-3 9th inning. But to me, the thing that really stood out with Jacob Junis is his slider looked great. I am very excited for Jacob Junis to get back into the starting rotation. I liked him before the season as an addition to the team, and I'm really excited for him to be 100% healthy, have his innings ramped up, and to see him back in the starting rotation. I think he's a piece that can really benefit the Brewers.
Yes, for sure.
And DL Hall will be back at some point as well. So very excited for that. The Brewers, they're getting there. We've been saying the reinforcements are coming, and we're getting closer to it. So what stood out to you from the finale that we were live during? And, what stood out to you from game 3?
So after this is where I have to pose a question to you that I saw online. I thought it was interesting. So you covered Freddie Peralta. Man, my brain was telling me to say Willie Peralta so bad right there, dude. So bad. But we picked this game up in the bottom of the 4th, and Contreras gets on base. He's always there for the stats. Contreras gets on base by legging out an infield single. And you're thinking to yourself, like, oh boy, baby, here we go. We're down 1-0. We got a base runner. Our best player gets on base. Now we have Yelly coming up. Yelly gets a 2-1 hanging curveball, and he crushes it to center field, 422 feet. I gotta say, really made me look like a dumbass because I did the starting pitching, and I talked about why Hendricks and Peralta don't throw more curveballs. Freddie really, but
he threw 2,
and he didn't need them. So, idiot. And then a hanging curveball, and it was like, idiot. That's why he doesn't throw the curveball. Smash to center field.
All right, so come watch us on Patreon to watch the pregame. Just listen to everything I say and pretend it's opposite Jay when Jake talks.
Man, he did have a good, and the thing is, he was mowing through the first couple innings, and he had a couple of good curveballs, and I was like, damn, I feel kind of smart right now. And all of a sudden, the fourth inning, he's just like, you know what? Let's just let this one lay in the zone for Yelich to just smash it. And I'm like, not great, but it is what it is. So then we're still in the fourth inning because we decided to have a 7-run fourth inning, which the Brewers just decided to pick an inning like every 3 games and be like, we're going to score a bunch.
Yep, all our eggs in this basket.
Oh, that's a better way to say it. So Frelick ends up getting on base by hitting a single. Bowers walked. Hoskins got on base by hitting a single. And then Bryce Terang comes up, right? And he gets a sinker middle in, 87 miles an hour. Does not miss. Does not miss it. Crushes it. Tyler and I are just dumbfounded because we're like, why do we keep hitting grand slams? And then after the game, Pat Murphy has the greatest response of all time. Says, and I'm going to paraphrase, but he says that it was a recipe online and they bought it. That was like, honestly, ending that conversation, like answering that with humor is the only way that you could do that, in my opinion. Because there is no answer, right? It's just you're in a hot streak right now. So he doesn't give generic answers. I love his sense of humor. It's perfect. It was so Pat Murphy, which maybe should become a slogan. That's so Pat Murphy. But I have a question for you.
Okay.
Because after this one, the comment sections were insane for Chicago. Who hates Craig Counsell more, Milwaukee or Chicago?
If you had asked me this question 2 months ago, I would have said Milwaukee, but right now it's definitely Chicago.
Easily.
And I think Chicago Cubs fans, I think they hate their GM more than they hate Counsell.
Yeah.
But I think Brewers fans have changed the tune to we hate him for leaving to LOL, look what happened because you left.
Yep. The karma thing, right? So the last thing I have to say about this, and I found this online as well. There is a bet at Potawatomi for how long Craig Counsell will last in Chicago. The over-under is at 2.5, bro.
And that's tough.
Dude, I laughed so hard when I said, no way.
That team was supposed to be leading this division, and they're in last.
Yeah. They're not just in last. They're getting crushed.
Yeah. That's funny.
We are stopping them.
So Brandon just posed an interesting take. Mentioned DL Hall. Brandon said Hall will be in the bullpen now, I think. What about this? So this is kind of a hybrid between what I was saying. Leave DL Hall in Nashville as long as Keuchel and Savali are giving you fine innings and Junis gets back to the rotation. You leave Hall in AAA starting games in Nashville. Let him continue to prepare as a starter, play as a starter. Then maybe later in the year, if you do, God forbid, have to get rid of a guy like Payams, which is not something I'm saying we need to do right now, or Holby Milner, just some guys who are struggling recently. I'm not saying we need to DFA Holby Milner or Yoel Payams. I'm not saying that. But if their struggles that they're currently dealing with continue and that is a call that needs to be made, then you can bring DL Hall into the bullpen. Or knock on wood that there's an injury. Like if something like that were to happen, then you can bring DL Hall to the bullpen. But I think right now, as long as the team is rolling, just let them continue to develop in Nashville. I don't have a problem with that. And just let him continue preparing as a starter and prepare him for the 2025 bullpen or starting rotation.
Yeah, I mean, though we talk about experience being the best teacher, right? There's absolutely no problem with what you're saying. Leave him down there in Nashville. If you need to bring him up, bring him up, but you don't have to force the issue.
Yeah.
He's ours for a long time now. So
Yep.
let's just make him as good as possible. If he has to refine some pitches, let it be.
Yeah. Yeah, Brandon said the Brewers are known for putting minor league starters in their bullpen. Don't hate keeping him in AAA either. And they've done that with Burns. They've done it with Peralta. They've done it with other guys. So, yeah, totally agree with that. That's something that we've talked about. Maybe Jacob Mizorowski playing a similar role later this season, which
Yep.
I'm really hoping he gets to AAA soon so that something like that is an option because I just don't think he's going to go from AA straight to the majors in the bullpen. So I want to see him get to AAA like ASAP so that a month and a half from now we can talk about having him in the bullpen for September. And Christopher brought up another guy, Aaron Ashby.
That's another one.
Exactly the same situation as the L Hall.
Yep.
Keep him in AAA starting, and if you need to, you can bring him into the bullpen.
Yep.
Or into the starting rotation if, knock on wood, if something is drastic and needed there.
Yeah.
Okay. Let's go to the Rockies series. Let's talk about Monday's game. I'm going to say this because I said it during the game that this Brewers team is so fun to watch, and I was waiting for people after the Brewers lost the lead in this game for people to be like, do you still think they're fun? Yes. Yes, I do. Because even though the Brewers lost this game, this was a very fun game to watch.
Yes, it was.
Okay. So, Reggie, welcome back. Jake, what stood out to you from game one against the Rockies on Monday?
So the first thing that sticks out to me, now we're going to have some discussions in this game. We're going to have some discussions. So I'm going to just cover the basic stuff, and then when we have discussions, there's going to be some dialogue. 6 Brewers had RBIs in this game. That's insane. Eric Haas, one of them. So good job by him. Also, I think that Mitchell had a great at bat in this game. So just want to give that a shout out. 3 of the 6 people had RBIs with 2 outs. Now, we're going to get to one that shouldn't have been with 2 outs. I don't know if you want to open this can of worms right away or if you want to do your breakdown, then we'll get to it. You want to talk about it right away or not?
Might as well.
Okay. So obviously I'm referring to Contreras' home run as my house is just mad upstairs. It's going insane up there. I do not know what's happening because I am in the basement. But I will tell you this. He was not outside the base pads.
It's such a dumb thing. And the way that they ruled it is that he's 3 feet away from the guy trying to tag him. That's not what it should be. What are we painting that second line for then?
Is somebody not measuring it? Was it 3 feet and 1 inch? Like, what are we doing here?
It's 3 feet from the baseline, not 3 feet from the base trying to tag him. That's so dumb. So dumb. Like, no, that's such a dumb thing. Why are you painting that second 3 foot away baseline if you're not going to go by that? That's so dumb. That to me is an umpire making it about them and being like, ooh, I have a chance to make a call. Like, I can interject and do something. Like, the line is there. Let the line be the judge. That line is, basically perfectly straight, which, as long as it's drawn straight, like, trust the line. That's what it's there for.
Yeah, that's literally
if you're not going to trust the line, don't put the line on the field. It serves literally no purpose if you're not going to use it.
And there's literally like a page written rule on why the line is there and how to use it.
Again, if you're not going to use it, don't put the line there. All you're doing is wasting chalk.
Yeah, I just thought all of that made no sense. And I feel like the game kind of got flipped after that moment because it felt like, even though that Contreras hit the home run, it felt like the momentum got taken away from the Brewers in that moment. At least to me, maybe that's my feelings towards it. I'm not saying that's how the team feels, but for me personally, that's how it felt. And then it was kind of like, oh, great. I mean, we got a home run, so I'm happy. But it's like that should have been a 2-run home run. We should only have 1 out right now. Like we could really be cooking in this inning right now. And it's just the way that it all kind of played out after that. I mean, I'll let you do your breakdown before we get into some stuff with Picaguero and all that. So go ahead.
The bottom line is even after that situation, we're not going to sit here and say the umpires cost the Brewers this game. It's really the Brewers still had a chance to win after that. And Brandon said it's funny how the home plate umpire is the one who threw out Murph, talk about umps making it about themselves. I really think Jake and I talked about this last night too, that there's got to be some sort of peer review for umpiring.
There's got to be.
There's got to be something. There's got to be something when it comes to that. So, okay. Let's just talk about the game. Joey Ortiz is back in the lineup for this game. He had a rare 2 strikeout day. Jake and I talked about this. We agree that Joey Ortiz just coming back to the lineup didn't really look comfortable. And obviously now we got the corresponding move to that as he was moved to the injured list, retroactive to yesterday. So I guess there is something to that. So I guess we were on the right track. Now, 3 Brewers made debuts for 2024 in this game. Obviously, Garrett Mitchell made his 2024 debut. I'm going to call him Big Z from here on forth, but Rob Zastrizny.
Yeah, I'm not reading that
Big Z. We're calling him Big Z. It's just easier, and it's funner.
Yeah, funner. Yeah, oh, funner. Making up names, making up words. It is.
Yeah, I know it's not a word. I'm still going to say it. G-Money, Christopher calls him. And Eric Haas, the spring training sensation. So Big Z opened the game, the bottom of the first inning, with a 1-2-3 pitched as the opener. Eric Haas was 2 for 4, including a hit for the lead in the top of the 8th inning. And Garrett Mitchell, I did not expect him to get 3 plate appearances when he subbed into this game as a pinch hitter. Drew a walk in his first one, and then had a single in his second at bat. Reggie said he did good. He really did. And one of the things that I noticed, Kurt Hogg had tweeted about this, that Garrett Mitchell during his rehab faced 33 fastballs outside the strike zone while he was in Nashville. Did not swing, did not chase at a single fastball outside the zone. And then the Rockies pitcher came in and he's just throwing a bunch of fastballs outside the zone. And Garrett Mitchell's like, all right, bro, thanks for the walk. So loved that. Brandon's glad that Mitchell is back. So am I. And again, it just creates a good problem for the Brewers to have, that they have a lot of good players that they need to try to find playing time for.
Yes.
It might sound like a stressful thing to figure out because you're like, oh, you can't take away from this guy. He's been playing so good. Like, that's a good problem to have. That means your team is good. So outfield is dude, I love the Brewers outfield because there's so many variations of things they can do with it. And we've talked about this earlier in the season. When you play for Pat Murphy, you better be ready to play every day. He's using everybody almost every single day. Almost everybody is playing every day, whether it's pinch hitting, subbing into a game defensively, pinch running even. If you're wearing a uniform, you're probably going to play that day.
Yep.
So there's that. Bryce Wilson, he gave up 2 home runs on some pitches that he probably wish he located a little bit better, mainly the sinker. And it is what it is. I do think with Hobie Milner and Yoel Payamps, we got to get him some low pressure appearances. I liked the idea of using Hobie Milner as an opener last week. I would be totally down to do more things like that. And I'd like to see Yoel Payamps just kind of get his groove back because I believe he's got really great stuff. We saw him perform all of last year, so I don't believe who Yoel Payamps has been over the last, say, 2 weeks. I don't believe that's who he is, period. So I think that there's still good pitchers in those two, and we just need to kind of get their mojo back. Brandon said almost a 50-50 split on lefties and righties too, and they're all good on defense.
They're all fast.
Awesome. And the cool thing is that the guy who's probably going to lose the most playing time, being Blake Perkins, is probably your best defender, and he's also a switch hitter. So having a guy like that, which is probably why they signed him originally in the first place last year, was to be like a late inning defensive substitute and a guy you can throw out against a righty or a lefty coming in from the bullpen. So having that on the bench is super valuable still. So the 2 strategical things that we wanted to talk about was, 1, using Elvis Peguero instead of Brian Hudson. And Jake and I talked about this kind of a lot. And Jake wanted to go with Hudson because he's one of your dudes. He's the dude for the Brewers. And I made the contention that 2 of the 3 batters coming up in the inning were right-handed batters. So you go with the righty-righty split. And Peguero hadn't pitched since Friday, whereas Hudson pitched Saturday. So there's just 1 further day back, and you're facing 2 righties in the inning. That's why I thought that Peguero was a fine move. I understood why they used Peguero in that inning instead of Hudson. Jake was just more the advocate for use your best guys in the situations at hand, which is also a fine take. I'm not mad at the take, but I'm defending my understanding of why Paguero was put into that game. Obviously, Hudson is a stud, an all-star level stud, but I think Paguero is getting into underrated territory as well.
For sure. Well, especially when he has that slider going, man. Then he
had a 270 ERA coming into this game, so he's not a slouch.
No, he's not. And Elvis was my guy last year, where he was kind of like the Hudson for me last year, where I was like, yo, this guy might be something.
I mean, we had the law firm going last year.
We did. I do want to say, I feel like a casual in this moment for this reason only. Having seen what happened the next day and understanding that we did need Hudson, I understand the numbers. And, I'm not going to say that I was necessarily wrong, but I am going to take partial credit for maybe being wrong. You do got to trust your guys up there, right? We are going to need Paguero at moments during this season. Mm-hmm. We're gonna need Payamps as well. So anybody who's jumping off the train for Payamps and Paguero, you need to check yourself. Okay, we're gonna need both those guys.
Yep,
Paguero is going to be pitching a lot of 6th and 7th innings, maybe some 8th innings still. I mean, we're gonna need both of them. So don't just sigh and be like, "Oh God, Payamps is in." He's not that guy. Did you forget how dominant he was last year? For how long he was dominant? He was awesome. So they're going to give up runs. They're human. Okay. It is what it is.
Christopher, I appreciate that. And on the other side of that is I'm not going to jump on Jake and be like, well, Hudson gave up an earned run the next day. So it could have happened on Monday if they had used him there. I'm not going to do that and try to rub it into Jake's face and be like, see, you were wrong. I was right. Like, I'm not going to do that. I'll probably do it when we turn the cameras off. And but I'm just kidding. I promise you that who you see on camera is who we are off camera. We are definitely the same people.
Yeah, I say a lot of weird shit on here, so I sure hope that I'm not saying that it's scripted.
Dude, you made a Chicks at the Bar reference earlier in the day, like.
Hey, you guys now see what Tyler has to deal with, bro. We try to run a successful show, and then he has to listen to that shit.
Yeah, in the back of my mind, I'm like, where is he going with this? All right. So the other strategical thing that we were talking about is the 10th inning. Mm-hmm. Firstly, starting with the top of the 10th inning, Christian Yelich caught on the contact play with Rhys Hoskins grounding into a fielder's choice with the infield in. That, and Kim, I'm not trying to single you out, but Kim asked the question or posed the take of Yelich making a mistake there. That play, we've talked about it before, that's a called play. Mm-hmm. That's a pre-decided thing that as soon as contact is made, you're taking off. And the reasoning they do this is it's because of their aggressive nature. It's to put pressure on the defense, to force the defense to make plays. So first of all, you're going to have the same number of outs either way. You still have the guy behind him moving to third base. It's really just taking the chance of Christian Yelich scoring on a contact play versus the batting average the batting average with runners in scoring position of the next batter. And then that's what you're weighing essentially. And the thing we have to deal with making some outs at home is being aggressive. That's the cost of being aggressive. You have to accept these types of plays of guys being caught at home. You have to accept that as part of being aggressive. I've said this a handful of times already. If being aggressive worked 100% of the time, everybody would do it. But it doesn't work 100% of the time. However, when it works, the Brewers can score runs in bunches. If Yelich gets down the line and the third baseman throws it past the catcher, the Brewers aren't scoring one run in that situation. They're scoring two.
Mm-hmm.
Because I believe it was Sal Frelick. Sal Frelick is coming right behind Christian Yelich and scoring on his heels if that ball gets past the catcher.
Yep.
So the Brewers in that situation, if there's a bad throw, the Brewers aren't scoring one run, they're scoring two. Mm-hmm. Which when you are the away team and you're playing in the top of the inning, of extra innings, you want to score multiple runs. Yes. If you're in the bottom and it's a tie game, then you only need to score one. And then you play to just try to get a ball to the outfield. All you need is a sac fly and you win. But when you're the away team, you need to score as many as possible. So keep the aggression on, keep the pedal down. Any thoughts that you have on that top of the 10th?
I mean, I kind of told you a little bit last night where it was like, Okay, I understand the 5 infielders. I think I would have. Oh, the top of the 10th.
Bottom of the 10th. Let's do top of the 10th first.
I went right to defense because I was thinking about defense in my brain. Top of the 10th. I don't have a problem with it, dude. I mean, we've played aggressive this whole year, and we talked about play earlier that we've done, right? Where we steal second and somebody steals home.
Yeah.
If you're gonna have that kind of mindset, it's got to be 100% of the time. I know I've said that on here before too. Yeah. It's not a sometimes thing; it's an all the time thing, right? And that goes back to a quote from Vince Lombardi, where he says, "Winning isn't a sometimes thing; it's an all the time thing." Yeah. And if you're gonna go for it, dude. Don't half-ass it, because then you're gonna half-ass something else that you're supposed to do. Go for it. Be all in. So it is what it is. You're gonna get thrown out at home every once in a while, but you know what? You're gonna score a lot more runs that way.
Yep.
You are not gonna score runs that way. And we've
100%.
seen that, obviously.
Totally on board with that. Because then you're really just putting more pressure on your hitters, and you're gonna constantly be looking for the big hit, the one big hit, instead of just putting pressure on the other teams and making the teams make plays and trusting your speed, which the Brewers have tons of.
Yeah, gotta be the fastest team in baseball.
I have no problem with saying that they are. Okay. Let's talk bottom of the 10th. Now, again, we're talking strategy here, and we have to remember there's no Pat Murphy in here to help make these calls. So we're dealing with Ricky Weeks, who's the first time in the dugout since he was a player. I'm not saying that Ricky Weeks is incapable of managing these situations, but he has not been in charge very much at all. I think this is the third game that he's played as the acting manager.
Mm-hmm.
Now, bottom of the 10th, the Brewers get the first out. They get a fly out. And then they intentionally load the bases with 2 intentional walks, and they go to the 5-man infield. So what did you think about that decision in the bottom of the 10th inning?
So the one thing I will say, actually there's 2 things I will say. I thought that they were going to put Frelick on the left side of the infield, like third base, shortstop. But because it's only because there was stats that I saw the day prior where they were talking about how Bryce Terang is so good going to his right.
Yeah.
So it was like, if he's a Gold Glove level player, you let him go. But then we also have a Gold Glove type of player in Adames and a very slick infielder in Ortiz. So, like, where do you put him? You just try to take away the gap that where the numbers say he might hit it on a certain pitch, right? The next thing is, and this is what I told you last night, I would have maybe shaded the outfield towards the gaps because they are fast enough. That's kind of nitpicky in my opinion.
Yeah, I agree.
He could have hit it down the line. It wouldn't have fucking mattered anyways.
Right.
But where he did hit it, and again, this is hindsight is 2020, where he did hit it, Mitchell maybe would have had a chance at it. But, that's another situation where you're going to go for it. You just go for it, man. You be ultra aggressive on offense, ultra aggressive on defense. It's like pulling the goalie of hockey, right?
Yeah.
You got to go for it. And if it works, it's beautiful. If it doesn't work, you move on to tomorrow.
Yeah, they're just setting up more force outs. I thought maybe only doing 1 intentional walk just to set up the double play.
Yeah.
But by doing 2, you change it so that if there's a tapper that you can just, Contreras could just pick it up and step on home and throw to first or something like that. So you're just increasing the number of force outs. It's just a tough situation when you have a guy on third base with 1 out and the opponent only needs 1 run to score.
Yeah.
That's just the benefit of being the home team.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so Brandon mentioned last night it proved that it's in the opponent's heads. Frelick gets thrown out at second base, but the Rockies played the second baseman in front of second for the steal home. So there's interesting things here. Now, I will give credit. I believe his first name is Nolan Jones, their left fielder. That dude has a cannon. An absolute rocket arm. So 2 days in a row, the Brewers had somebody thrown out, 1 at second base and 1 at home plate by the left fielder. The one that Eric Haas got thrown out on Monday trying to stretch a single into a double, which should have been a double. I mean, it was pulled down the left field line. But friggin' cannon, Christopher said bazooka arm out in the left field, threw a 101.3 ball to second base to get Haas. That's stupid.
Yeah, it is.
And then on yesterday's game, 100.8 miles an hour to catch Bryce Terang at home plate. I saw people giving shit to Jason Lane. You're not holding Bryce Terang at third base.
No, you're not.
your arm is a Ferris wheel if you see Bryce Terang coming towards third base. There is almost no situation in which you're holding him at third base.
And you know what? If there would have been a stop sign and Terang would have ran through it, I still wouldn't have been
I
mad.
wouldn't have been mad at Terang. Nope.
I'd have been like,
not have a
trust
single
yourself.
problem with sending Bryce Terang in any situation.
Dude, it took a perfect, accurate throw. If that throw is up at all,
0.8 miles per hour.
If that throw is up at all, he's scoring.
Yeah. No, you give credit to the left fielder. Stop trying to blame Jason Lane for that send. That's a perfect send every single time.
Yes.
You're sending Bryce Terang in that situation.
Yes.
Okay. Now, I want to pat myself on the back just real quick because when we talked about it last week that Gary Mitchell was coming back, I said I don't think he's going to start Monday because they face a left-handed pitcher. Oh, I said that during the watch party. I don't think he's coming back Monday because they face a left-handed pitcher. I said he could sub in late, but then I think he's going to start Tuesday because they play righties Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. And then he started. Also played some right field when Blake Perkins came in, but the thing that the Brewers are really dealing with now with Dallas Keuchel, he's starting to get better. What the hell is with Dallas Keuchel and being really good in the odd innings but bad in the even innings?
I don't know, man. That's got to be the weirdest thing I've ever seen in my life.
First inning gives up a 1-out single, nothing else. Second inning gives up a solo home run, a triple, and a sac fly to score 2 runs. Third inning, 1, 2, 3. Fourth inning gives up a single and 2 2-0 walks. Didn't give any runs, but still 3 base runners. Fifth inning, 1, 2, 3.
That just makes no sense.
So the first, third, and fifth, he faced 10 batters and retired 9 of them. And then in the second and fourth, he allowed 5 base runners and 2 runs.
Yeah.
So if there's a way that we can just have Dallas Keuchel pitch the odd innings, Brewers have an ace.
Cy Young.
That's what Dallas Keuchel's been. He's been an ace in the odd innings. Okay, give me your takeaways from last night, but let's save the 9th inning and let that be its own piece.
Okay, because that you want to play if you want to play some circus music for the end of the Rockies. I mean, that would be awesome. We get to I can't even talk about the RBIs because they all came late. But in the pitching aspect. Anoli Cannoli pitched a third of an inning, had a hit, 2 walks, so he didn't look right. Probably a telltale sign that he was going to go on the injured list. Milner pitched a third of an inning, and you know what? I don't give a shit. People can say what they want. He pitched a third of an inning and didn't give up anything. That is one building block for a guy who's really been struggling, and this goes to anybody who struggles with anything. You take one positive step forward, and then you just build off that. And you just say, I'm going to take another positive step the next day, another positive step. So now, actually, I'm going to put a star next to this. So I remember this. So that if Hobie Milner turns the corner, we could talk about it being against the Colorado Rockies in an away game on a random Tuesday night.
All right. I'm with it.
Then we get to Brian Hudson. Now, he was really good in the 7th inning. But then he got into the 8th inning, and I think that the pitch count just got a little bit high for him.
Yeah.
And I think that he started losing command of his pitches a little bit, catching a little bit more of the zone. The pitches were up a little bit, and he gave up the earned run, and it was like, damn. The 2 walks, also not very Brian Hudson. It is what it is.
Yep.
He did have the 1K, but Big Z came in and finished off the 8th inning, and he did a tremendous job. So let's give him credit for that as well. 0 hits, 0 earned runs, 0 walks, and 1K. So Big Z having Hudson's back is tremendously big when you see what happened in this game, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I'm going to end it right there, and I'm just going to tell you, the Brewers going into the 9th inning last night had 1 win when they were trailing by 8 innings. And it was a watch party, by the way. So I mean,
we did have a watch party for that game.
If you guys want to come to the
rally helmet, oh yeah, that was the first day we pulled out the rally helmet.
It was. I flipped up the old rally cap. Oh yeah. I mean,
good times.
They have. I mean, this obviously we know they won. They have 26 comeback wins this season. The last 6 wins the Brewers have all been come from behind. That's got to be some sort of record if they keep it going. Hopefully not, because I'm sick and tired of stressing out.
Right? Yeah, I would just love to beat a team 10-0. That'd be fun.
that'd be nice.
I mean, like, they don't ask how, they ask how many, but I mean, like, let's just
Yeah.
like beat the hell out of somebody for a little while and just like laugh.
Right. And the last one I got before we get into the ninth inning here, the Brewers are now, after last night, 33-12 when they score first. So I mean, they come from behind. They are very good when they score first, and that was still one of my favorite. Hey, that was a crazy moment, Connor. Crazy moment. Nobody believed it was going to happen except us, and we were there and we watched it.
That was awesome. And the interaction that he had with the Royals fans after that was like the coolest thing ever.
Bro,
Christopher, you are ready for some stats. Let's get into the ninth inning here. So we talk about the Brewers driving up pitch counts, right?
Mm-hmm.
And the Brewers went super deep in a bunch of pitch counts. Jake has the exact numbers on some of these pitch counts. But my thing is that their closer that they use in this game, he's not their full-time closer. Their full-time closer is Victor Vodnik, but I don't remember the name of the guy that they were using last night. I think it's Mears. He's their other guy that they use.
Yeah.
Through 39 pitches.
He did.
That guy's probably not pitching today or tomorrow.
Probably not.
And then the guy that came in after that threw another 16 pitches. The Brewers saw 55 pitches in the ninth inning last night. That's absurd. It's a lot when a guy has to throw 30 pitches an inning. And we made two pitchers throw 55 pitches last night in the ninth inning.
Bonkers.
That's so many pitches to throw. The Brewers just constantly falling off pitches. Tons of them. Jake's going to have the exact numbers, but the Brewers sent 8 guys to the plate. Like, that whole ninth inning is just a textbook of extending at bats and just falling off pitches until you get one you like. So, Jake, take it away. 8 guys to the plate, 55 pitches. What was the lay of the land there?
Okay, so just want you guys to understand that when you hear how these guys are getting on base, this is so dumb. So we had an infield single from Monasterio who had 7 pitches to get an infield single. So if you're the pitcher, you're kind of like, what the hell? Right? Turan comes up the bat after a 7-pitch infield single and takes a 10-pitch walk. So now if you're Mears, you're really saying, what the fuck? Contreras only had 3 pitches, but he gets a shorter leash. He popped out. All we needed was 1 run to tie it, right? So I am absolutely okay with Contreras swinging at that. So then Yelly ends up getting a single on the 7th pitch of his at-bat. So, I mean, we're just racking up the pitches at this point right now. Adames has a 3-pitch sac fly. Mears is up to 30 pitches now, and the Brewers tied the game. So now if you're a Rockies fan, now all the fans are saying, what the fuck, right? And there was only like 3,000 in the stands, so it's fine. Then Mitchell, who I am so impressed with his plate discipline, I got to say. His plate discipline is crazy for a guy. This is why we were talking about he's a 5-tool guy. And we can talk about something. I want to give you credit for this. He may have just a tad smaller ceiling than Jackson Chourio. Jackson Chourio may have just a little bit of everything else.
I think Christopher's like leading the fan club for Garrett Mitchell, but we had a pretty lengthy conversation about this last night that Garrett Mitchell, outside of Jackson Chourio, probably has the most potential in the outfield, obviously besides Christian Yelich, but he's a veteran and we've seen what he can do.
Yeah.
If Garrett Mitchell is healthy, he's got star potential with potentially a sprinkle of superstar potential.
Yeah, he's absolutely a monster. So after Adames has a 3-pitch sac fly, which we're at 30 pitches now, Garrett Mitchell and his really, and that's why we're brought it up.
He's in.
See, the thing is, Christopher, Tyler and I talk so much that we leave out half of the smart shit we say because we're just having conversations on Xbox about it. And it's not fair to you guys, so I try to remember.
Probably need a 6-hour-a-day radio show or something.
Right. So Garrett Mitchell has a 9-pitch walk, and he's up to 39. Mears is up to 39 pitches, and Bud Black is just like, okay, we're not doing this anymore. Okay. So they bring in, what the hell is that guy's name? Lawrence. Yep. Hoskins then has a 7-pitch at bat and gets hit by the pitch. And that is how the lead run ends up coming in for the Brewers. A 7-pitch hit by pitch. A 7th pitch hit by pitch. That's insane. Blake Perkins, for good measure, has a 9-pitch strikeout, but he fouled off four pitches. So, I mean, crazy stuff. 16 pitches from Lawrence, 39 pitches from, what the heck is his name? Mears. Yeah, Mears had 39 pitches. So, like you said, 55 total pitches, a hit by pitch, a couple walks, some pop outs, sac flies, a single. I mean, like you said, 8 guys come up to the plate. Insanity.
And I think that Blake Perkins should have had a walk there. And I think this could have been a 5-3 game with another guy coming up to the plate. They did not show a side angle of his check swing.
They did not?
So I'm going to hold that I don't think he went. Okay. So looking what the Brewers have next, they obviously have tonight and tomorrow night. They're at a 4-game series in Colorado. Then after that, then they go to L.A. They have 3 games on Friday, Saturday, Sunday against the Dodgers in LA. Saturday, we have our next watch party. So you have until Saturday if you want to subscribe to Patreon for July. That's going to be our first of the 2 Patreon watch parties for the month of July. We're going to have that one. And then we just put up a poll for the next one, which is either going to be July 21st for Brewers Twins or July 23rd for Brewers Cubs. Brandon said Perkins stared into the third base. I'm soul after that. Yeah, I'm with him on that one. But like I said, Saturday is going to be our next watch party, so you can join us for that. We'll have a pregame show. We're already working on segments for that. We're going to have some really good zoomed-in stuff, especially on some of the Brewers outfielders for the pregame for that watch party on Saturday, and then we'll watch the game together and have a postgame show afterwards. So we have that 3-game series against the Dodgers, and then we will have the first game of the Brewers series at home against the Pittsburgh Pirates. The next 2 games take place after next Wednesday's show. So we have that. Jake, we're looking at 6 games. What are you looking for a record for the week?
So 2 against the Rockies, 3 against the Dodgers. I'll say 4-2. 4-2.
I agree. I'd be happy with a 4-2 week, especially with 5 of the 6 being on the road. So looking for the next 2. If we take the next 2 from the Rockies, I'll be comfortable whatever happens for the Dodgers series.
Yep.
Okay. Now, also, Brandon said 3-3. I'd be okay with it. Like, if we're just splitting series on the road, like road trips, I'm not going to be super mad at it.
No.
If we're around 500 on the road with a little bit of a lean towards the above 500 side. Christopher said with G Money 4-2 is solid. If Garrett Mitchell comes back and it just injects even more offense into the Brewers, they're pretty much set.
He could be the power man that I was talking about on Sunday. He could be.
He really could be, like, if you put him in, like, say the 6 or 7 spot, he could be the power bat that kind of resets the middle of the lineup.
Yep.
So definitely some exciting things coming with Garrett Mitchell and the Brewers. So that said, Saturday, watch party. Then next Tuesday, we also have a Packers show. So next Tuesday is going to be our preseason Packers show. We're going to go through the entire roster for the preseason, and we're going to talk about some positional battles that we're watching at each position. So we'll talk about that. But now we're going to switch gears to the Bucks, and let's talk about the draft. Let's talk about AJ Johnson and Tyler Smith, because I think the longer we've sat with these, the more excited we are. Man, Christopher is excited for Xavier McKinney. We are too.
Dude.
I can't wait to start seeing him playing games.
Okay, this is going to sound really, really dumb to you, but I'm excited for Xavier McKinney on Madden. I'm not going to lie to you. I'm going to pick off so many passes with Xavier McKinney.
That sounds like something you would say.
I love beating people in football games, okay? It is what it is.
Okay. All right. Let's talk about AJ Johnson first. He was the first pick. We did post some thoughts on the 2 of them, some abbreviated thoughts. I wrote last night, if you're interested, I wrote an article ranking the Bucks 25 and under players by potential. And Tyler Smith and AJ Johnson were both in that list. So I wrote that out. That's much more fleshed out, which is kind of what we're going to do here. So Christopher said ultimate team, Xavier McKinney Packer theme. All right. Switching gears, talk basketball. Jake, what was your thoughts on AJ Johnson?
So AJ Johnson created a lot of controversy in Bucks Nation. And God, I told myself not to say mean things to people. And like you said, I'm thinking about it. I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to do that. For people who wanted to remain uneducated and not further deep dive, I was going to get really mean, dude.
He only averaged 2.4 points. He's got to be
Yeah.
trash.
I was going to go nuts there for a second, but I'm not going to be mean. I literally wrote on my notebook, do not be mean. Okay. I'm not going to be mean. For people who didn't want to do the research, read about him, look up his highlight reels, see what his coaches are saying about him, see what the Bucks GM and people who scouted him are saying about him, you're wrong. That's all I'm going to say. I'm just going to say you're wrong. For people who did, like myself and Tyler, because this is what we want to do for a living, AJ Johnson is a very, very interesting prospect.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I'm going to say something that I said again, that I've previously said. I'm going to say it again. This team lacked speed. This team lacked athleticism. And this team needed another ball handler. You tell me the three things that AJ Johnson brings to the table, as raw of a prospect as he may be. You tell me the three things that he brings to this roster. Speed, athleticism, and ball handling.
Yep.
Three things that this team needed. And you're upset at the pick because you're looking at numbers and you're like, oh my God, the big board said he wasn't projected here. Now I'm going to say something mean. Fuck your big board. Talk about your big board, okay? Sorry, I don't. They didn't give a shit about my big board. My big board was shit compared to the Bucks.
That's because you're just a random homer on the internet, Jake.
The Bucks had their big board who they wanted. AJ Johnson fell into their lap. They liked that pick. It is what it is. We can go all the way back to the Packers draft if we really wanted to. They picked the guy in the first round, Jordan Morgan, who they liked. They liked his base as a player. They're like, we could turn this guy into the next all-pro left tackle for the Green Bay Packers. You know what? Who the hell am I to question that? Yep. These guys do this shit for a living.
Yep.
They fly across the country, watch these guys play games. They fly across the world to watch people like AJ Johnson play games. And this is what they do for a living. So who the hell am I to question that?
I guarantee you they spent 100 times the amount of time that random fans on the internet took to type AJ Johnson into Google.
Yep.
I guarantee you they spent 100 times the amount of time that it took you to Google his name and make an opinion on him in 5 minutes.
Oh, just wait till I say what I say about Tyler Smith, because I'm gonna say some shit.
I have some thoughts on both of them when we get to some thoughts after we talk about both.
Okay.
But
okay.
Back to AJ Johnson.
You go ahead with AJ Johnson, then we'll talk about Tyler Smith.
Okay. My first thoughts. Now, this wouldn't have been the pick that I would have made.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to say that. I'm going to start there. I made the claim last week that I thought the Bucks were going to go Terrence Shannon Jr. in the first round. That was my hot take. That's who I thought they were going to try to take at 23. They didn't. They took AJ Johnson. And I'm like, okay, that's not the guy that I would have picked. But I'm like, okay, they got this guy. He's young. He played in the NBL. Okay. He didn't average a lot of points, but they had to have seen something in him that made them decide to take him in the first round. And the more I looked into him, the more I read about him, watched tape on him, and then looked, like you said, the way that other people talk about him, the way that coaches talk about him, the way that he was talked about by John Horst and Doc Rivers when they were introducing these two. The more and more that I've looked into AJ Johnson, the more I like the pick.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the things that I found out was that he's been working out with Jalen Green, who is a budding star for the Houston Rockets since 8th grade. So approximately 5 years, he's been working out with a guy who's going to be a star in the NBA. Then with both of these two, they both played in a professional league last year. They did not play college basketball. They both talked about it in their introductory press conference that they think that playing in their respective professional leagues gives them a leg up on other rookies who played college basketball because they were already playing against professional basketball players.
And grown
Tyler Smith in the G League was playing against rookies who were on two-way contracts playing with G League teams. And then AJ Johnson playing in the NBL, he was playing against other professional basketball players. There's a picture that we're going to share on our page some point here in the next, little while of AJ Johnson going against Matthew Dellavedova. Like a former NBA player, obviously a former Buck, but he's playing in the National Basketball League in Australia. He's playing against former NBA players. The Brewers, I keep doing that because I'm wearing a Brewers shirt. The Bucks signed Jalen Galloway, who came from the NBL. There's other guys that play in that league that are professional level players as opposed to playing in college, which AJ Johnson was committed to Texas.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not like they picked up a guy who was going to go to DePaul and decided to go play in Australia instead.
Yeah.
You already mentioned speed, athleticism. The thing that I didn't know, like I knew he was fast and I knew he could jump, like he's got a huge vertical. He is smooth. He is so smooth with his athleticism. The thing that like stood out to me was looking at transition. And in both directions, the Bucks struggled with transition last year. He chews up court so quickly when he gets the ball in transition. So quickly. Like, it looks like it only takes him 3 or 4 steps to get up the floor.
Now imagine him with Giannis.
Dude, him, Giannis, and Andre Jackson Jr. could outrun anybody in transition.
I think that was a point of emphasis for this draft.
Well, I have some thoughts. Now, I seriously, I had no idea he was that smooth with his athleticism, and he's got good handles. There's, I came with a visual aid. I decided to do this. This is insane.
30-17. All the way in and all the way up.
He's only 162 pounds.
30-17.
Dude, he gives a silly fake, like 2 dribbles, and he's dunking on 2 people.
There we go.
I'm watching his tape.
They go down, and then the young fella goes up like they taught him when you're a young man, up there with 2 hands, and he says,
"Dude,
I like what Chris said there. I like what Christopher said there. I like that."
There's a couple players that I think he's got kind of some of their game to him. Christopher said he's like a baby De'Aaron Fox, except he's 2 inches taller with a longer wingspan. People again just saw that, oh, he only weighs 167 pounds. How is he going to do that? People said the same thing about Devontae Smith going into the NFL. But you know what? If you can play, doesn't matter. One of the guys that we talked about, we posted a comparison from their combine measurements was DeJounte Murray. AJ Johnson is 1 inch shorter, not even an inch shorter, weighs 3 pounds less than DeJounte Murray did when he came into the NBA.
Is that guy good, by the way?
I mean, I only saw like 12 Bucks fans crying that the Bucks couldn't trade for him.
Oh, he's pretty good. Yeah.
Pretty solid. Yeah.
It would have been 12 Bucks fans per second because Jesus.
Yeah, well, I mean, I've seen, as far as Facebook is concerned, I've seen Bucks fans cry every time somebody signs or gets traded somewhere.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
And now I'm not expecting AJ Johnson to add 25 pounds of muscle or 30 pounds of muscle in his first year, but if he can get to that at some point, he'll be a very similar size to John Wall with similar skill set of athleticism, dribbling, and passing.
Mm-hmm.
So I see the vision here. Now, I get that there's people that were like, well, why are the Bucks drafting potential players? They drafted 2 of the youngest players in the draft. They drafted the 13th and the 15th youngest eligible players to be drafted.
Mm-hmm.
And Bucks fans, again, are crying, why are we drafting prospects when we need to win now? When I'm positive that there are very many correlated fans who complain that the Bucks are an old and slow team. These are not old and slow draft picks.
No.
The other thing, we talk about Tyler Smith now, another guy who adds a ton of athleticism to this team. He's 6'10", 6'11", depending on where you look, with a 38-inch vertical. Brooks almost 38 years old. Tyler Smith can jump 38 inches in the air.
I like that.
And Tyler Smith can also shoot the 3-ball. He was one of my favorite 2-way or floor spacing bigs when we talked about our draft prospects. And my number 1 target, if the Bucks were going to try to trade Bobby Portis, Tyler Smith was my number 1 guy that I wanted to potentially replace him.
Mm-hmm.
If that's the direction the Bucks went. I'm not saying I want them to, but if it's something they were going to consider, like if they were going to trade for, say, Marcus Smart, and Bobby was going to have to be included, that I wanted them to draft Tyler Smith as a potential replacement for Bobby Portis. Tyler Smith shot 36.4% from the 3-point line last year. Christopher brought up a really interesting point that Tyler Smith plays a lot like Jonathan Isaac. I love that take. I would love Jonathan Isaac on the Bucks. That guy has so much potential. He's such a disruptor. I think Tyler Smith has some developing to do as far as X's and O's are concerned, especially defensively. But I really, really like what he could potentially bring to this team. And both of them were talked about in the press conference. I believe it was yesterday morning. That they want to get in, get learning, and get up to speed because they want to play now. And John Horst believes that they can help in the future, but they can also play now.
I don't know if you're going to like my comparison, but I think you will.
Okay. The thing that John Horst said that stood out to me and with these two picks is the one thing is certain with A.J. Johnson and Tyler Smith. The Bucks got younger and they got more athletic. Mm-hmm. And John Horst, when asked about that, he said, quote, "It's intentional."
Huh.
So, another large portion of Bucks fans spent a lot of time complaining last year that Doc Rivers didn't play the young guys. They drafted 2 guys that are 19. Last year, they brought in Andre Jackson Jr. They obviously still have Marjan, AJ Green on the roster, Chris Livingston. Those are the 6 players that are 25 and under that I ranked for my article that I wrote for Behind the Buck Pass for Fansided. And this is the thing. If half of your roster is 25 and under, you don't have a choice but to play young guys.
Yep.
So by adding more young guys to this team, and obviously they've added some veterans as well, there's really no choice but to play some of the young guys. Now, you can give me your thoughts on Tyler Smith, and then I want to pose a question to you.
Okay. So, Tyler Smith, this is a pick that made way too much sense after you sit down and you think about it with a human brain. Size, athleticism, stretches the floor. Those are all things that the Bucks needed, right? They needed another stretch big. They needed a guy that was going to fit into that forward room with a Giannis and a Bobby and a Brook, right? So my comp when I was watching him, and I was just like thinking, I'm watching one, I'm watching another one. I'm watching one that was like 8.5 minutes long, and I'm just like, dude, this is the 19-year-old Michael Beasley right now.
Oh. But he's like 1.5 inches taller. Okay.
Okay, so athleticism, stretches the floor, not known as a defender at this point in time, but I will say Tyler Smith being put into the Bucks culture of defense first will do wonders for him. He has the athleticism and he has the length.
Okay.
I didn't know if you were going to like that, but I was like, dude, this is Michael Beasley right now. Am I watching
So I will say that Michael Beasley has a long-standing history of like people being like, yeah, he's the hardest player I've ever played against to play one-on-one. Christopher said he's a walking bucket. I will say Tyler Smith has a lot of work to do on mid-range to be Michael Beasley.
Yes.
But as far as talking about skill set and stuff like that, I can see it. Like Tyler Smith, he can put the ball in the deck a little bit. Like I'm not going to go ahead and say like, yeah, he's a ball handler, but similar to the way that like Brook Lopez once in a while, it's like, oh, Brook can drive to the basket. Like, okay, all right, nice job, Brook. Like stuff like that. I do think he's got some face-up game, so I'm not mad at that at all. Actually,
I'm with it then. All right, I thought it was pretty good, so I'm with it.
Okay, so there's 2 things. One is a take that I have, and the other one is a question that I'm going to pose to you.
Okay.
First one is my take. If you switched 23 and 33 and you picked Tyler Smith at 23 and AJ Johnson at 33, I don't think there's nearly as much complaining, if any.
I can see that.
Okay, so that's my first take. Now, my second take, my question, as I was looking more into AJ Green and thinking about what Ajax can bring, and again, if we have all these young guys, thank you, Christopher. If we have all these young guys like Marjan Beauchamp, AJ Green, Chris Livingston, if he's on the roster and not playing for the herd a little bit more, did the Bucks bring in their 2024 win now players in 2022 and 2023?
Ooh, that's heavy. Okay, so there's layers to this. I'm going to say this. Marjan has to take a massive step. Like, it's time now. Okay, so Reggie's already off board. That's fine. I will watch you drown as we win 60 games this year. That's fine. I'm not throwing you a raft either. You made that choice to jump off. AJ Green progressed very nicely last year. If he takes another step like he did this year, he's going to be a dynamite rotation player at the bare minimum.
Yep.
I do see AJ Johnson and Tyler Smith etching out roles in this team. Tyler Smith, literally strictly just because he is got size. AJ Johnson, because he's got speed. Those are two things that they always have told you since the end of time. You can't teach. Size, speed. So they got those advantages for them. I'm going to say yes. I think that they've done enough with this roster. And I don't think it has anything to do with adding players, by the way. I think the thing that has to happen is health.
Here's the thing. I agree. I don't think it has anything to do with adding players. I think it has to do with the players they're letting walk.
Ooh. Okay.
So they're letting, obviously, Gallinari. They're letting Patrick Beverly, assumedly, based on what they've done so far, walk. They're letting Jay Crowder walk.
Yep.
And Ty Washington is another example, but they're letting those guys walk.
Mm-hmm.
And you look at, okay, what can the Bucks do to replace those guys? Malik Beasley, AJ Green.
Mm-hmm.
They brought in DeLon Wright, who we'll talk about in a second, but Patrick Beverly, another guy you can kind of say they brought in DeLon Wright to replace. DeLon Wright's kind of more of a combo guard, so I think he's going to kind of hybrid replace what Beasley and Beverly do. Christopher brought up Taurean Prince, who we're going to talk about in a second. For Crowder, my Jay Crowder replacement is Andre Jackson Jr.
Yeah.
That's really what started turning my mind on this question of have the Bucks brought in their win now players over the last 2 years. Is if we talk about the young guys that Doc Rivers used, he couldn't really use Marjan because almost the entire time that Doc Rivers was the head coach of the Bucks, Marjan had an ankle injury.
Yep.
So Doc Rivers didn't really ever have an opportunity to put Marjan into the rotation. So I think Doc Rivers is probably going to spend a fair amount of his summer deciding what Marjan's role is going to be for this Bucks team. However, the two young guys that we saw have a role were Andre Jackson Jr. and AJ Green. So I think those two are going to be rotational players this year, and quite possibly the third and maybe fourth guys off the bench.
I can see that.
And I do think it's still possible if the Bucks don't add anybody else. I do think it's possible that AJ Green starts at the 2. So I'm going to go to Tom's question from Twitter quick before we talk about the free agents that the Bucks added. Tom asked, what do we think about the Brewers trade? We talked about this right at the top of the show. Adding Savali, a guy who's had some inconsistent year-by-year stats, but has a high spin rate, something the Brewers seem to value, and trading from the single-A affiliate, the Timber Rattlers, an infielder, when the Brewers have gotten great infield play from Willy Adames, Bryce Durang, Joey Ortiz, and having Cooper Pratt. I'm okay with trading a single-A infielder for a guy who can help you now.
For sure.
Okay. Let's go to free agents before we get out of here. And the Bucks have added, first they added Stanley. I'm going to say it's Amude. I didn't look it up. I'm mad at myself that I didn't look it up to get the pronunciation for it.
Okay.
What do you, I mean, he's a 2-way, added a 2-way contract. I don't know if there's anything super strong feeling that you have.
I'm just going to say that he's replacing Ty Washington because that's exactly how I felt when I saw it. So
that's fair. I just wanted to note, I had it here. Oh, he's 6'6". He has a 6'10" wingspan.
Yeah, I remember he's pretty big, but he's just taking his role, I guess, is what I'm saying.
Yep.
Not essentially like his play style.
So just looking at just his size, he's another wing with length, and he shot 45% on threes with the Pistons in 24 games last year. That was the other thing.
Yep.
Tom said talking about Savali, he looked good while he was in Cleveland. Maybe Tampa wasn't the right fit. And Tom, the thing that we said, bottom line, with anybody you're talking about as far as pitchers are concerned, we trust the Brewers pitching lab wholeheartedly.
Yeah.
So that's the bottom line for us there. We trust the Brewers pitching lab. Okay. two other free agents. First, they signed DeLon Wright on, I think that was Monday, and then they signed Taurean Prince about an hour ago. So, Jake, give me your thoughts. Let's talk DeLon Wright first.
DeLon Wright, a guy who's a combo guard, good shooter. He has very active hands on defense, gets a lot of tip passes, jumps passing lanes. Just honestly, if a guy that wasn't on my radar, but a really, really good pickup for them, a guy that could fill multiple roles. He could start if need be, or he could just be the guy that is the floor general, point guard role, shooter, whatever you want to call him, off the bench. So just a great move. And What do you think?
He's a career 35% three-point shooter, averages over a steal a game for his career.
Yeah.
He's a veteran. I see him as a backup guard. I think if we're looking at, if they don't add anybody, if we're looking at the starting two, I think they would start AJ Green and have DeLon Wright running the second unit, like you said. And Connor said he also has the ham connection, as does Taurean Prince.
True.
So DeLon Wright, he's, like I said, he's the backup to kind of fill a little bit of both of what Beverly and Beasley gave the Bucks last year, which is some three-point shooting, some defense, and some running the point guard for the second unit. Yep, Connor's mentioning the ham connection for Taurean Prince. So that signing, I actually am big in favor of signing Taurean Prince. I think it's a really good signing. I think he does kind of bridge the gap for what Jay Crowder does. And Christopher, I don't think that Ajax starts at the 2, just because I don't think that's really the role they have in mind for him.
No.
I think if we're looking at who you're going to put in the starting lineup to go with Dame, Chris, Giannis, and Brook, which Reggie asked the question, do you think Lopez is coming back? Right now, I'm leaning towards yeah. I haven't heard anything concrete towards the contrary besides Doc Rivers saying they want to play a little bit of a different style of defense. But so far, all the moves they've made, I think, kind of address that as well. So I think it's possible that we see the similar role for Brook Lopez, just maybe fewer minutes. So I think that's a possibility. But I don't think Ajax even if he takes a leap, that he makes it into the starting rotation as the shooting guard. Just because I believe that if you're looking at, like I said, who you want to start with Dame, Chris, Giannis, and Brook, that you want to have a floor spacing shooter out there as opposed to another defensive guy. And I think if we're talking about leaps, that I think Ajax will probably be the third guy off the bench with the opportunity to pass Pat Connaughton as the second guy off the bench.
Yeah.
First guy off the bench is obviously going to be Bobby Portis. But after that, I think it's kind of open for roles increasing. It could be DeLon Wright. It could be Pat Connaughton. It could be AJ Green if they decide to bring somebody else in to start at the 2, or if they put DeLon Wright there. But I think Ajax is going to be in that group of players who is next off the bench after Bobby Portis. Now, Taurean Prince is also going to be in that conversation for the 7th man in the rotation. Reggie asked the question before we talk a little more about Taurean Prince. What do you think about Patrick Beverly? I personally, at this point, I don't think he's coming back. I think they'll roll with DeLon Wright and see if having the third string point guard is AJ Johnson.
I think so too.
Christopher likes the answer. I appreciate that. Taurean Prince, I think he is a great signing for the Bucks. I would have totally been on board if they had signed him 2 years ago.
Yeah.
I would have been on board if they signed him last year. I'm on board with them signing now. He's a career 37.6% three-point shooter. Connor asked, do we see any trades? I'm not going to rule it out, but I'm also not going to say that I think it's something that's going to happen. If I'm giving a percentage, I'm going to say like 75-25, the 75 being no trades.
Yeah, I would lean a little bit less. I would say 65% no trade, 35% trade. But I will say about Taurean Prince, yeah, he's known as a defender. He's known as a guy who's smart. He knows his role, and they were looking for exactly a guy like Taurean Prince, honestly. Yep. He just feels like they were like, we need a guy who's long, who's willing to shoot threes, who's not a headache, and willing to just accept the role off the bench.
Yep.
Taurean Prince.
Let's grab a veteran minimum wing defender that can shoot threes. Yep. Taurean Prince. Here you go. Here he is. And like Connor mentioned, the Darvin Ham connection obviously played for the Lakers last year, so just stays around. He's 6'6", 37% career three-point shooter. He shot 39.6% on threes last year. Just a pretty reliable guy. Also, I think this is worth mentioning, played 78 games last year.
Dude, he's going to get a lot of wide open threes playing with Dame, Giannis, and Chris.
Absolutely. So that's a perfect signing, in my opinion. As far as talking about guys that you can add on veteran minimum contracts, I think Taurean Prince is a great addition.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Now, I think the Bucks have, I believe they have one, maybe two roster spots left available. Christopher brought up one, saying, do we think that Gary Trent Jr. is a possibility? I think it's a possibility. I think he's going to get paid more than a veteran minimum, though.
He's going to have to take a massive pay cut and bet on himself.
Yes. Christopher, the one thing that came up with Gary Trent Jr. is the person reporting that said that Gary Trent Jr. and the Milwaukee Bucks could have mutual interest, whereas the Bucks are a team that need a shooter and Gary Trent is a shooter. That's essentially what it boils down to. There's no smoke here to be looking for fire. This is just like a thing where it's like, okay, the Bucks need a shooter. Trent is a shooter. Like, they could be mutual, you know?
It's somebody trying to create the smoke.
Yeah, right. Okay. Reggie said, good news, Packers family night is a month away. Reggie, we're going to do this for Patreon. This is going to be a bonus one. We're going to do a free one. We're going to do the Packers-Broncos preseason game for a watch party so people can kind of see what we're doing for the Patreon subscribers. So we're going to do a Packers preseason game next month in addition to the 2 Patreon watch parties so people can kind of get a visual of what it's like. They can come watch one and see what we're doing on Patreon and see if they want to do that with us for $5 a month, twice a month, and they get to pick the games. So Reggie subscribed that was on Facebook, I believe, that I saw you became a subscriber. Go over to, I can post the link. Patreon is a different site. So that's copy link. Okay. There. Patreon link is in the comments for anybody interested in following us over there. It's $5 a month. You get to see some of the graphics that go on the page early. And other than that,
no, Chris.
No, this is not Patreon. The Wednesday shows is always going to be free. That's our thing. That's always going to be free. As well as the Tuesday nights, that's always going to be free.
Appreciate you, Reggie. Thank you, man.
The Patreon is an extra thing that we're just doing, like watching games, to give extra content. That is something that can help us monetize the show to get us to a point where we can make enough money to not have to work full-time jobs and be able to devote more time to the show. So as that Patreon continues to grow and we have more people watching it and more people subscribing to it, and as much as I'm like, thank you, Connor. Connor said it's worth it if you can subscribe. It's not us like being like, hey, give us money. Like, we like money. It's really like, if we can have enough money to support our lives to the point that we don't have to work full-time jobs for somebody else, that we can work full-time for ourselves. If you like the amount of content that we can put out in 2 hours on a Wednesday afternoon, and when we get to Packer season that we can put together on a 2 hours on a Tuesday night, if we could do that for 40 hours a week, just imagine the amount of content that we could create. And the ways that we could help, teach people about the games and things like that. And the more play breakdowns that we can do and more shows that we can add, and then we can add more watch parties, and we could have $5 options to do 2 games a month, and have $10 options to do 4 games a month, and have a $20 option where we do 4 games a week, and we can watch games all the time and have our own pregame shows that go with those. So that's what the watch parties are. Christopher said the Patreon is definitely worth it. I appreciate that. Seriously, we will give you thank yous on the Patreon side of it because we appreciate that people are willing to give us money for what we are doing. And it's going to help us get to a point where we can do this more and do more, create more, and interact with you more. That's why all of our shows are live, so we can interact with everybody. So we can answer the questions you guys are coming up with. So we can have some quote unquote face-to-face conversations, things like that. That's why we do all the shows live, is for that interaction. So you can call us out on the spot and tell Jake that he's wrong for saying that Hudson should have pitched on Monday.
I'll tell you if I'm wrong.
Reggie said he's going to need a flat-billed hat with a logo real soon. Well, we got to work on hats. Yeah, that's something we don't have. That's our shirt guy only does shirts. Wisco Ball's got Wisco Fanatic shirts that you can get. But yeah, that's where we're at with merch is we just have shirts and hoodies. But
yeah, man. I mean, the best way that this kind of stuff spreads, honestly, is just by word of mouth, right? I mean, we can share stuff. We post reels. We make posts all the time. I got some videos coming. Actually, going to be posting the first one this weekend about schedule breakdown videos that I put together that I think are pretty fun. So we could do all that kind of stuff, but we still need your guys' help. So I mean, a flat brim hat. I mean, flat build hat. Sorry. I think that's a great way to get the word out. People wearing T-shirts, people just sharing our content. I mean, that's just easy way for you guys to help us out. We appreciate everybody truly. I don't believe that I deserve any pedestal. I really don't. I'm just the average Joe like you guys. I go to work and I complain about being up early in the morning just like everybody else, but I'm just a guy who loves sports. I love looking into sports deeper. I love learning more, and we want to bring you guys with us, man. It's not just me and Tyler going to the top. We want to bring everybody who is there with us to the top with us, and let's do this. I do think they have hoodies on there. They do have hoodies on there, right?
Wisco Ball has hoodies. Yep, you can definitely get a Wisco Fanatics hoodie on Wisco.
The hoodies are really nice. The material's really nice. It's really soft.
Super soft on the inside.
Yep. We were thinking the same thing. Yeah, they're really nice. So yeah, definitely go buy one. They have gray, black, and green, or is that just T-shirts?
T-shirts, there's lots of colors.
Yeah, there's
a handful. But yeah,
I only know the green because you always wear your green shirt. That's why.
Yeah. Reggie, they fit pretty well to size. Christopher, thank you. And like Jake said, you guys can help us by sharing. That's something where if you can't subscribe on Patreon, we get it. And if you can just share the show, share our win graphics that we post after every win for the teams, share the reels, follow us on all the socials and things. And the more people you can tell that can come and watch us and follow us, our goal is to hit 7K before Packers season. We're less than 200 followers away on Facebook to hit 7K followers on Facebook. And then my hope is to hit 10K followers by the end of Packers season. So that's my hope. And things like that, if we have bigger followings, we can potentially go to the teams and say, hey, we have a really big following. Could we interview a player? Or we can go to a sponsor and say, hey, we have 15,000 followers across all of our socials, and try to get sponsors and things like that, which again is just more ways we can monetize the show, that we can get to a point where we can do this show for a full-time job. Reggie said he's going to invite everyone again. We appreciate it. We talk about it where, like, if we can get to a point where Wisco Fanatics is our full-time job, it's not a job. It will be like dream come true type things for us. And I promise if we get to a point where that's something that we can do, that we will treat it as such. And every time we hit milestones, Jake, what do? We double down and we start wanting to do more. That's how it goes every time we hit a milestone.
Yeah. And I will say, Tyler and I feel like are pretty level-headed people, pretty down to earth. If we ever get to a point where we're interviewing people, and if I ever get to interview a player like Xavier McKinney, I promise you, Christopher, I'll come to you personally and I will ask you. You have a certain question you want me to ask him, and I'll make sure to put that in my 3 questions and be like, hey, we have a follower on our show. He's been with us forever. He's a big fan of yours since you signed here. Question, right? I'll ask it. I'm not afraid to do that for you guys.
Absolutely.
I think that would be fun.
Same thing with the Senior Bowl. I got to go to the Senior Bowl last year. Jake's coming with me this year.
Oh, I'm going.
And
I already told my boss. He said fine.
Yeah, it's stuff like that. The more we grow, the more we can do. The more we do, the more we grow. And it's something that we're not going to give up on. Obviously, this is something that's never gonna stop. The Tuesdays and Wednesdays is all gonna be free forever. And the Patreon stuff is just extra that we're doing in addition to it. So that's all we're asking for. Some subscriptions over there is to do extra. So that's where we're at. Reggie said Jordan Morgan said he'd do an interview. I saw him at the bar a few weeks ago. I would love to have Jordan Morgan on the show.
That would be exciting, bro. You just got my heart pumping a little bit. I'm not gonna lie to you. I can feel it.
Yeah. So again, anything you guys are willing to do to help us out, we appreciate it because it does help us get closer to making our dream a reality. And like Jake said, if we can get to a point where you have an office and a studio, like, bro, if we go to the Wisco Fanatics office and go into a studio to record stuff, like, that would be seriously like the coolest thing to be able to claim that, like, my job is to be a Wisconsin sports podcaster and showrunner and content creator. Like that would be the coolest thing ever. That's something I've been since I was a kid, is Wisconsin sports fans and loving Sports Center and having our own Wisconsin sports version of it. And then we took it to the optimistic and positive perspective, and we care about mental health and stuff too. If we can get to a point where we're making enough money for it to be able to then give back to other stuff too, like that's big dream stuff that we would love to be able to do in the future, that we hope we get to being there. Christopher said, imagine being from Wisconsin. I don't have to imagine it. I've been here my whole life.
Yeah, exactly. So before we log off, I got one thing to say to you guys. I want you to count how many fingers you have, okay? And I want you to go to bed tomorrow night. Okay, Jason Pierre-Paul, settle down.
No, that would be this.
I want you guys to be smart tomorrow with your fireworks, okay? Have a great 4th. Enjoy your families. But I want you all to be smart. I know that you guys are going to be drinking out there. We are in Wisconsin. Tyler and I, we're not big drinkers. So maybe we're fake Wisconsinites in that aspect. But be smart and have a great 4th of July. I really wanted to get that message. JPV is great. Bro, you're in the chat. You hear the zingers, bro. Tyler and I can be quick with it. It is what it is. But seriously, please be safe, okay? Please.
All right. Again, thank you, everybody, for being here. Reggie said the Brewers are winning 7-5 tonight. They're not giving up 5 runs. They're winning 7-0. No stress. It's just fun. All right. Christopher said Bazooka. Yeah, Nolan Jones out there in left field. Don't hit it to left field. Okay. Again, thank you, everybody, commenting along, sticking around for the whole 2 hours, asking us questions, interacting with us, liking our takes, liking our stuff, subscribing to us. Seriously, thank you for everything you guys do for us to be able to continue doing this and justify doing more. We really appreciate it. And like I said, every time we hit milestones and grow, it just makes us want to do it more. So we're not going away. We're only going to keep doing more. And the more we grow, the more we can do. So thank you again. And we will see you guys on Saturday if you're subscribed on Patreon. Otherwise, we'll see you on Tuesday for our Packers preseason show. And then we will see you again next Wednesday. So take care. And like Jake said, have a good 4th.